will say. Jonathan Davies is an economist and wealth advisor from Hertfordshire. I'm not sure if he knows where the magic money tree is. Jonathan, do you know where it is?
There are two ways that a government...
Good afternoon, by the way.
can get money to distribute to whomever they believe can get them more votes. Taxes and borrowing. There is, of course, a magic money tree. It's called borrowing. And it's just frightful. A few days after the general election, you had Theresa May in a closed room with all her MPs, and they were baying like wolves for her blood. And she said, I'm going to open, I'm going to release the belt, I'm going to spend lots of money, I'm going to make sure that your seats are secure. So, you know, politicians are not spending their money, and actually, they're no longer even spending our money. This is what's horrendous, Rob. Your listeners really need to get this. They're spending our children's and our grandchildren's money because they're not going to raise taxes. They're going to raise borrowing. We already, as a country, the government already owes nearly £2,000 billion.
Okay.
Our children and grandchildren are going to have to pay for this, and the current generation do not seem to get this.
Well, surely we can just... This is one of those things where you can just kick it into the long grass, a bit further into the long grass, because the country's always carried debt.
They've been kicking it into the long grass since 2008-9, when they decided to give our bankers literally hundreds of billions of pounds. You know, think about that. And what have we got to show for it? Over the last 10 years, we've had an average of just over 1% per annum growth, whereas if you compare to the last 60 years, the average has been 3% growth. In other words, something isn't working. And what's not working is more borrowings, more debt, therefore, more interest payments, and less opportunity for the economy to get going. 1% per annum is not good enough. We need a 180-degree reverse.
But the thing is, right, Jonathan, when we leave Brexit, okay, when we leave the EU, we're ploughing on, doing our own thing, we'll be better off out of the common market. We will be all right. As Michael Gove says, obviously he's a very trustworthy chap, of course, he's calling for an easing of austerity to respect the integrity of wage review bodies for nurses and teachers. He must know something.
And therein lies something that I've been saying for many, many years. As strange as this may sound, there's actually very little difference between the Socialists and the Conservative Party. When it comes to it, the Tories spend just as much as the other guys. Indeed, George Osborne and Philip Hammond have doubled the national debt. George Osborne borrowed more than Gordon Brown. And as I say, you know, whatever way you spin this, and of course the politicians in government are spinning it, we're the good guys now, blah, blah, blah. They're just the same as the other lot. They are only going for votes. They're going for easy life. They are not taking any hard decisions whatsoever, and our children are going to have to pay for it.
All right. So what about just putting out some taxes a little bit somewhere down the line?
Well, again, you're coming to it from the wrong angle. You can all of the things that they talk about, cutting the spending, increasing the taxes, that is all a short-term solution. But that doesn't get to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is that our economy is in a dire state. There's little opportunity for entrepreneurs and businesses to make profits, employ people, and grow the economy.
Jonathan, hang on.
We're hampered by the debt.
Hang on. Entrepreneurs and economists are making loads of money because the corporation tax rates are so low. Rich people are getting richer. There is money somewhere.
There is no question that the rich are getting richer. The inequality that we have is as much as at any time in history. The reality is that over the last 20 years, the rich have got richer, and the bottom 60% have either stayed static or gone backwards. And since 2008, the big bust, the top 10% has done very well. The bottom 90% has not done well.
Okay. Well, surely that's what we need to reverse. So
I couldn't agree more.
But
Thus,
that can be done, can't it?
Excuse me?
That can be achieved, surely.
Of course it can. For example, in 2009, Mervyn King, the Governor of the Bank of England, slashed the base rate, slashed the interest rate, and Mark Carney's continued it. The problem is they've kept it far too low for much longer than the economy would normally require it. So all they're actually doing is helping their buddies in the banking system, and ultimately what a low interest rate does, it brings down the value of the pound, which means our import costs rise, which means we have inflation, which increases the cost of living, the costs of doing business, which goes back to what I said about our entrepreneurs are hampered. And that's the reason why there's problems for the bottom 90%, because we're not getting wage rises, but our costs of living are rising. That's why the Governor and the Bank of England need to normalise interest rates. That way we'll increase the value of the pound, we'll reduce the cost of imports, we'll increase our standard of living, and we'll reduce the cost of running businesses.
Jonathan, if I was paying for your advice in the time I had you on, how much would it cost me?
A lot.
Don't even think about it. Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan Davies, Economist and Wealth Advisor from Hertfordshire. A good bloke.